Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Jihan Benisahash, presenting on behalf of our Affirmative Group team with Mr. Aaron from Cameroon. And today, we are debating on a critical topic treating the question: should African governments invest in creating genomic databases for pediatric cancer? Our answer is a resounding yes. Honorable judges, esteemed opponents, let me ground this debate on the current reality. Pediatric cancers are rising in visibility and burden. But do you know that by 2050, nearly half of the global burden of childhood cancers is projected to come from our continent? That's not a distant problem, it's an urgent one. What I will show you in the next slide may shock you. It's not just percentages, it's a reminder of injustice. Are you aware of these different percentages? Yet, survival rates for pediatric leukemia remain below 20% compared to over 80% in high income countries. That gap is unacceptable because it tells us a story of inequity and the urgent need for action. Why? Because treatment rely on genomic data, and Africa contributes less than 2% globally, despite being the most genetic diverse continent. So why do genome matter so much in cancer? Because cancer isn't just a disease, it's a disease of the genome. So understanding those mutations is the key to saving lives. But in effective cancer, treatment depends on understanding genetic mutations. What happens when Africa lacks the data? It means treatment are based on assumption, not evidence, and that costs lives. Imagine this: a child's chance of surviving cancer depends not on science but on geography. African children deserve treatments designed on their biology, not borrowed from elsewhere. Investment is not optional. It's the foundation of equity and survival. The real question is not, can we afford it? But can we afford to ignore it? Genomic equity is not a luxury, it's a necessity. And the call to action is clear. We must address genomic disparities now so every African child receives care tailored to their unique genetic makeup. Let's unpack why genomic database matters. Africa has the highest genetic diversity in the world, yet most cancer relies on non-African data, and this creates a dangerous blind spot in pediatric cancer care. Policies based on foreign data assume one-size-fits-all biology, which is scientifically wrong. Building African genomics database removes these blind spots and ensure treatment decisions are based not on evidence nor assumptions. Current treatments often ignore African genetic diversity, leading to wasted drugs, repeated hospitalization, and unnecessary suffering. Genomic data allows us to tailor therapies to African children, improving survival and reducing side effects. This is not just science, it's a smart economics. Investing in genomics saves money and lives. Clinical trials also drive innovation, but African children are largely excluded. Why? Because we lack local genomic data. And without it, trials are unsafe and irrelevant. Genomic database open the door to ethical, accurate trials and ensure African children benefit from global advances. Trials should test drugs for our children, not on our children. But who control Africa health data? Today, most samples are analyzed abroad and benefit rarely return home. Without sovereignty, we surrender control over our health future. Governments must own and govern genomic data too. ensure ethical use and guide public health decisions. No data sovereignty means no health sovereignty. The opposition team argues that genomic databases are too expensive. But let's be clear, governments already spent millions on failed treatments, adverse drug reactions, and late stage care. Investing in genomics saves money and lives in long run. They also claim that equity in outcome is clinical, not genomic. That's misleading because clinical care without genomic evidence is just a guesswork. Genomics tell us which treatment works, at what dose, and for whom. Finally, they suggest that funds should go to drugs and training instead. But drugs without data waste money. Diagnostics misclassify disease, and training without local evidence teaches doctor to follow foreign protocols. Genomics is the foundation, not the distraction. The opposition says equity begins with basic care, not advanced data. But this is a false choice because we need both. Basic care saves lives today, but genomics prevents systematic treatment failure for tomorrow. They fear database will become academic assets only. That's happened only if governments fail to integrate them into policy. Governance, not genomics, determines impact. Finally, they argue that Africa lacks expertise, but expertise grow where systems exist. Database attract talent, partnerships, and capacity building investments. In short, rejecting genomics means accepting permanent inequality.
Hello everyone, my name is Kintong Ireneus Fonyoy from Cameroon, and my colleague and I are presenting on the debate topic: should African government invest in creating genomic databases for pediatric cancers, including leukemia, to improve treatment equity? We are in the affirmative team, and here is the critical evidence. Specific African genetic variations make standard drugs for leukemia, like the thiopurines, to be either toxic or ineffective in this population. And applying European drug dosages to African genomes can lead to dangerous side effects and often lead to treatment failure. As earlier mentioned by my colleague, the global genomic databases constitute only about 2% of the African genomic data. And this raises concerns because even in this 2%, the pediatric population are rarely involved. And this is why localized genomic data is essential. Without it, we are gambling with children's life. But with genomic data, we can be able to design safe, effective, and treatments that are tailored for African populations and give every child a fair chance to survive. I leave you with some critical questions, especially for the opposition. Should equality ignore equity in healthcare? Is it wise to spend resources on treatments that fail because they were not designed for African biology? Should Africa surrender control over its genetic resources or claim genomic sovereignty? And how do we stop the issue of brain drain in Africa if we do not involve in local research infrastructures? The last question will be: is it ethical for African children to remain invisible in genomic research that determines their survival? These questions are key and must be answered. Lastly, we say that we cannot cure tomorrow's disease with yesterday's data. Africa must lead its own genomic revolution. A smiling African child represents hope and the positive impact of advancing genomic medicine in Africa. Vote yes to database genomic investment for Africa's future health equity. Thank you.